Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
Hey, guess what today is? Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oi! And it's time for Captain Glenn. Join you ready on? So everyone let's gather around. Cause Maritime Matters. He's a native of Andros. Say what? But he grew up in Nassau. Sail around the Bahamas, all around, with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Hey! Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oh yeah. And it's time for Captain Glenn. Let's do any boy. So everyone let's gather around your radio. Cause Maritime Matters. Hey! Well, you know today is Tuesday. Say what? And it's time for Captain Glenn. So everyone let's gather. Cause Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one. Welcome all. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. The producer for our show tonight is the great one himself, Mr. Maestro, Mr. Kishno Jones. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM studio. This is Tuesday, the 16th day of June 2026. And if it's a Tuesday, it's maritime. Tick, 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 tick. Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tuned in with us, please do so cautiously. And ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are One-on-One Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cuz, Shantia, Shani, my little cuz, McBride, and the lovely team at One-on-One Pharmacy in Nassau, and of course, Island Care Pharmacy up there in the second city of Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. And at the BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS, Maritime Security Services. Good night, Annie Mae. Oh, my goodness. My number one fan up there in Freeport, the second city, is my good old auntie. Auntie May, 93 years old, people. 93, the big bad number 93, and going strong. Strong and strong. And you may just do your thing, baby. You know what you're doing, whatever it takes to keep going, you do what it takes. You know we looking for century and beyond. Century and beyond. And I'm watching you, because I plan on following in your wake. You know, I used to see him, and I like following your wake when you're doing them goodness. Tonight, my dear listener, we engage discussions surrounding international and domestic hot maritime impacting topics that are making big waves in the ocean and on the banks. per se. Discussions surrounding these hot topics, therefore, should include the following. And these come straight out of the press. You all been hearing about this. I've been getting so much calls on some of these things. I couldn't wait to bring these up so we could have discussion. Why y'all leave me hanging tonight? I want some calls tonight because, well, anyway, I got plenty of information now. If you ain't feel like calling, just brace yourself and get your little book and your paper and let's go rolling. Let's go sailing. Sailing, keep you away a minute. Who sang that? Christopher Cross or somebody like that. Sailing. The United States and Iran have finally come to an agreement to end that war in the Gulf. That ain't the Gulf of America, or as we know it to be, the Gulf of Mexico. That is the Gulf that is extremely rich. Rich in what? Rich in oil. Rich in soil. Rich in all kind of goodness, where you make plenty of money. That is the Persian Gulf. So after months, I think from the third week in February, 20-something of February, this war was going where plenty bombs, missiles, drones were being dropped all over the place. So an agreement was reached on Sunday night that there should be no more bombing by the U.S., by Iran, no bombing by Israel, no bombing by Lebanon by way of Hezbollah. That agreement has been reached and it comes into effect. Well, it's in effect now because the bombing doesn't stop, right? But it's officially in effect on Friday morning. With that agreement, they are wondering, and the world is wondering, if Israel is going to fully cooperate with this end of war ceasefire type thing. Because, during that war, Israel, while they were lashing out at Iran, along with the U.S. and dropping bombs all over the place, they were also heavily bombarding the Lebanese and the Gaza Strip and those areas next door, and they were occupying spaces. And they were saying, we're creating a buffer, like they did the last time, and then next thing you know, that belonged to them. And Israel ain't finished yet. So when the U.S. decide the war could desist, we could cease the war right here, and everybody stop the bombing, Israel is not saying, we hear you, we can stop. Israel is saying, boy, we ain't sure about that yet, right? And the jury's still out on that. So we're all hoping that by Friday morning, when it's all summed up, it will be clear that Israel is required and will desist all those warlike activities in Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, the South Bank, and all those areas that they have been devastating over the past year or so. Another part of this agreement is that the Strait of Hormuz should be freed for navigation. So what been happening, my dear brother, my dear sister, is once the war got underway and bombs started dropping on Iran, and of course Iran started lashing out at some of the neighboring countries, and not at those countries per se, but they were lashing out at U.S. bases in those countries. All at them. Saudi Arabia, Oman, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, all of them were getting a little touch where they have U.S. Air Force bases and stuff like that, from missiles, ballistic missiles, drones coming out of Iran, because there's nothing to stop the coast of Iran from staging attacks on the opposite side of the Persian Gulf. Because you got to remember now, Iran take up a whole half of the Persian Gulf. And the other half is shared by all of those countries. So Iran got the lion's share. And you can't do nothing to stop Iran from making attack on those countries. And Iran was very careful, although they were being bombed to powder. And when I say bombed to powder, we talking about the mountains and stuff like that, because during that exercise, or during that, well, it ain't no exercise, during those attacks, it was revealed that Iran as a state basically went underground. Because deep down under the mountains, they had trenches and trenches of accommodations, where they made tunnels, where they stored weapons, food, and everything else. And so while the top was being bombarded, it was really not having a direct impact on their weaponry and what they're capable of doing with all those drones and that type of thing. And so while they were bombarded for months, on top of months, they were still always able to retaliate with ballistic missiles and drones and underwater submarine drones and that type of thing, where they were able to the extent to attack all of those countries opposite. And they were very careful not to attack civilian sites and like hotel infrastructure, that type of thing. No, they attacked naval bases and Air Force bases and airplanes. And they're the type of things they attacked, eh? Where they would put those radars and whatnot, so that when drones, when missiles and stuff are coming out of Iran across the pond, they would intercept them. So Iran knocked them out. And so, in the process of all of this, Iran demanded that no ship will enter or leave the Persian Gulf without their blessings. And when they say enter or leave the Persian Gulf, see, you gotta remember the Persian Gulf is like a bowl. The Persian Gulf is like a pond. The Persian Gulf is one way in and one way out. You can't go in the Persian Gulf, pass the Strait of Hormuz, and exit anywhere else. You got to come right back to the Strait of Hormuz. And geographically, the Strait of Hormuz runs through the belly of Iran and then runs back out again. So there's no protection for any ship, be it a military ship, be it a container ship, be it a tanker. You have no protection from the coastline of Iran sending ballistic missiles and drones at you. And so, worldwide, all insurance is new. The P&L clubs, they all knew that you are in deep trouble, deep danger, deep risk when you try to go into the Persian Gulf and not have the blessing of Iran. So all insurance cancelled. They say any ship going through there, the insurance don't count no more. We're not going to pay. You know what that did? That caused all those cargo ships. I wouldn't talk about passenger ships because, you know, they're not going in there with people because passenger ships do go in there when things are normal. To go to Dubai and Qatar and those countries, they got cruise ships coming in, right? But the cruise ships could no longer come in. As a matter of fact, it got so bad that the supply ships that bring food and water and that type of thing, well, they don't need much water because they got a lot of reverse osmosis plants already where they converting salt water to drinking water and all that, right? But they got these container ships and bulk carriers bringing, and then bulk carriers coming in to Qatar to try and get the fertilizer, because they got, must see, 40% of the world's fertilizer coming out of there to give the world fertilizer so they could put that in the soil for the plants to grow the way it's supposed to grow for the next year, and that was stopped because the ship couldn't come in for it. Definitely couldn't leave if they had it. So Iran basically put a stop to shipping in the Persian Gulf. Stop to the extent that the 23% of fuel, oil, gas, diesel, all the rest of that, crude oil, all that, comes out of that. Even natural gas in big quantities comes out of that Gulf. And then all that get locked down because Iran ain't letting no tanker go in and out. Now Iran had their own tanker come to them and leave, right? And strangely enough, although Iran was being bombed to powder, the US did not bomb those ships that were going to Iran for oil. The question is why? Why? Because the price of oil started to jump and get higher. And it escalated to the extent that it doubled and then heading for triple now. Right? And so every drop of oil that came out of that Gulf helped in slowing down what the price could have been. So the US allowed Iran to send oil wherever they sent it. They sent it to India, they sent it to China, those type of places. But while that was going on, the other countries couldn't send no oil out. Plus any ship coming in there for oil, Iran charging them a bunch of money just so they don't bomb them and allow them to pass the Strait of Hormuz. And only Iran, no other country in the Gulf have this capacity to stranglehold the Gulf of Hormuz. Because the opposite country is Oman. And Oman ain't no big war like, they ain't got them kind of weapons. And Oman is trying to stay with everybody. You never hear about Oman in war yet. Right? So Iran is the big bad bully in the Western Asia, Southwestern Asia area. And the next big bad bully would have been Israel. And of course, while all this going on, Israel having big issues, and they send it, and then the U.S. bought their a whole large fleet of warships. And as they started to get closer, Iran was able to send some missiles at them, drones, and they were able to impact one or two warships. So they realized now we got all these aircraft carriers, we got all these destroyers, frigates. Well, the US don't do use frigates, they do small, right? Submarines. And ain't none of this could go through the Strait of Hormuz because they could be too close in Iran, facing Iran, could do them in. And so they stayed miles off, like over 100 miles off. They couldn't get to within 100 miles of Iran because they know Iran had all them weapons. And so the bombing continued. And as our good friend President Trump said back a couple of months back, we're going to bomb them into the Stone Ages. Were they bombed into the Stone Ages? No. Because Iran happened to be a country that is mountainous. And they were almost ready for this kind of thing. That's why they had all those underground tunnels and the capacity to live underground while you bomb them on the top. And so, at the end of it all, the only thing that really started to happen was the price of oil keep going up. And I would have said in my communication on the show last week that the reason why the oil was going up so fast is because 90% of Iran oil, maybe not 90, maybe 70, but I know the larger majority of Iran oil was going to China. And this is the second one because, you know, the U.S. had shut down Venezuela from sending out oil. To the extent that they tracked down some of the ships that had Venezuelan oil on it and took it. And then we find that Venezuelan oil, the large majority was going to China. So, probably more than half of the oil that China was getting and need to keep its industry and stuff going was shut off. Shut off by actions the U.S. perpetrated with Venezuela and Iran. And so what you think China could do? Sit back and say, bye. I fooling with them. Hey, I just got to hide because I know I can get oil from now. No. Wherever oil is, China got enough money to pay double and buy it before me and you get it. So when China had to now find new places to get half of their oil supply, because they ain't going to let no factories shut down because they ain't get no oil and gas, eh? Those areas where we would have gotten ours and the rest of the, I want to say third world, I don't say third world, developing countries just get theirs from, China started hooking that up. And so they were able to go up on their prices because they had this big demand. Everybody wanted their oil because now China need plenty oil and they going around finding places where they could get their oil. They ain't worrying about the rest of the world suffering. And you can't blame China if they got money. So when China did that, that suffocated the oil industry generally. And although the United States produce a lot of oil, sell a lot of oil, they also import a lot of oil from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq, UAE, Kuwait. Those countries, they feed the U.S. and many other countries with oil. But they couldn't do that no more. So everybody oil start to get short. And the price keep going up. So at the end of the day, a decision had to be made by President Trump whether we can sit back and continue to bomb them and allow the price to go. See now, you got to remember now, this is a timing thing. It's timing in the sense that Iran could just lay low, as we call it, lay low in Bimini. Iran could lay low and say, man, y'all bomb till y'all tired. We under here. We not feeling that. Yeah, you're breaking up our place, but we under here, we safe. Our weapons under here, when we're ready, we can pull them out and shoot them out. So Iran is prepared. You remember now, Iran is a country that was at war with Iraq for 7.5 years, 8 years war between Iran and Iraq. Before both countries decided, look, man, we ain't getting nowhere, we ain't beating you all ain't beating us, all we doing is having war for nothing less. And they decided to just stop warring with each other and live as enemies, but not war. So Iran used to hibernating during wartime. Nobody likes it. It was very difficult for them. But they did so. Was that a call on the line? No? Okay, call. I think I saw something beep. If you want to call back, feel free. And so we at the stage now where the U.S. decided we don't want the oil prices to continue rising, and we don't want it to stay this high. So we need to find a deal with Iran where they would allow ships to get in and out of the Gulf. So they want Iran to release the stranglehold on the Gulf of Hormuz. And this stranglehold would have caused the current administration, the Trump administration, some problems in the elections in November if the price of oil continued to go up, because the Americans ain't like spending a bunch of money for oil or for anything if it could be avoided, eh? So the U.S. hands was almost forced to say something got to happen to stop this oil price from rising. And the only way, the only answer to that was to strike a deal with Iran where they will release the stranglehold of the Strait of Hormuz. And so part of this deal is the Strait of Hormuz should be free for navigation. Because during that bombardment period, Iran started to charge money, millions of dollars, for any ship that wanted to pass. They give you a pass, they ain't gonna bomb you, they ain't gonna let you pass, but you could pay them a couple $1 million because they're under duress and they could use the money right now to do certain things, right? They ain't gonna have no much imports coming to them. Because while all this is going on, the U.S. had a naval blockade. All those aircraft carriers and destroyers and submarines wasn't allowing no ship to go near that area or come out of that area without their blessings. So we had two things going on. We had the U.S. creating a filter to say only who we bless can be able to go in and out of the Gulf of Oman or the Strait of Hormuz into the Persian Gulf or whatever the case is. And Iran had the stranglehold on the strait to say, if you come this way, and we ain't giving you our blessing, you're getting bombed. So that was the situation that had to be diffused. And on Sunday night past, after months and months of thugging and pulling and pushing and lobbying and all the rest of that, it concluded that the war is over, the bombings will cease, and everything will start to come back to normal. So the U.S. fleet agreed to pull out of the area. Iran agreed to remove the stranglehold on the Gulf of Hormuz and not charge anybody. And we will see oil prices, as long as this hold, we will see oil prices start to level off around where it is now for a couple months probably, and then start to come down gradually. Because it's not like hitting a light switch. And just because they release the Hormuz, no, because now you got to go through a lot of ships waiting for insurance to give them the green light. You got to wait for some of those damages that happen at some of the terminals in the Gulf to be reassessed. You have to wait for the Strait of Hormuz and the entire Gulf to be swept with mine sweepers and mine hunters and that type of thing. And so it's not an overnight thing, dear listener. But we all could thank our lucky stars that this agreement has been reached and the price of oil and oil products around the world now have a chance of taking a downward spiral, even if not to all the way down to where it used to be, at least much lower than it is today. And I know if y'all like me and y'all is man, but y'all Bahamians got so much money, y'all probably even ain't notice how much gas costs, because y'all just fill up your guy anyhow and say, man, I'm gonna go. Because we ain't got you no bus, eh? Y'all know how we roll. Ain't got you no bus. So, ladies and gentlemen, I talk a lot. I said all that as an opener. And just before we go to our first break, let me just say what we're coming back to talk about. And yeah, I see no call. I saw one call, look like it did come in, and somebody decided they must even want to talk to me no more. We want to talk about this security alert that was issued by the U.S. ambassador that jet skis are dangerous in the Bahamas. No more U.S. Embassy staff are allowed to rent these bikes, these jet skis, these motorbike on the water. We don't want our visitors to rent them. Can't stop them, but we don't want them to do it. There's been a lot of injuries and fatalities and sexual assaults because of these jet skis. There's a lot of unsafe practices. Vehicles not insured. Vehicles not licensed. That they're renting to our people. So the oversight is horrible. We need law enforcement to strengthen the monitoring, improve the compliance, and reduce illegal operations by way of the use of these jet skis. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to talk a little bit about that. Also, we had a 15-year-old teen killed. Or was he 16? I think he was 15. He was killed while standing on the bow of a moving speedboat with a 12-year-old behind the controls. We don't know no details, where he jumped, where he got dumped, whether the 12-year-old ain't know what he's doing. We don't know what happened. All we know is he ended up in the water, and as a result of that, the boat ran over him somehow, and he didn't make it. So that brings up a lot of questions as to whether this 12-year-old should have been behind the controls. It also spills into the fact that, according to our regulations, if you have your private boat, you don't need a license to drive it. Nobody needs a license to drive your private boat, so long as they over 16 years old. Right? You don't need to know anything about rules of the road. You don't need to know anything about handling that vessel, although you borrow it. We say borrow. You don't need to do no tests to prove that you can handle a vessel by law, because you ain't need no license. And these are some of the things that we can look into as far as the Motorboat Control Act is concerned. Because I think we need to upgrade these procedures when it comes to giving people the ability to operate a boat that is private amidst all the commercial vessels and all the other boats where people who drive in them have licenses, know the rules of the road, and all the rest of that. If you could drive a car, your own private car, on the road, but you have to have a license. But the road, your car ain't get swerve off the road if you're sane and ain't drunk, or you just driving normal. Your boat, the boat in that open water ain't got no lane, ain't holding on to nothing. You need to know what to do if you see another boat coming towards you based on the rules of the road. So don't tell me it's okay for the fella to be able to drive in his boat, what he just bought, for the first time, never drive no boat before, don't know which way to turn if a boat coming toward him, don't know which way to turn if a boat on his port side, whether he's a stand-on vessel or not, don't know what to do when he hear three short blasts from another vessel, don't have a clue what that is, don't know what lights he's supposed to display. You don't have a clue when you driving a boat in the open sea, even in the night. Are we stupid or are we stupid? No, those days are gone. See, when this act was written, this was in the 60s. In the 60s. How much people at speedboat, man, we started buying Seagull engine and we just started getting really fast boat in the 80s and 90s, when the drug trade come to get some fast set. But just saying, why we have people driving their own boat, whether it's their boat or they borrow somebody's boat in the night and they know nothing but rules of the road. They see a boat red light, they know if that's port or starboard. What nonsense, utter nonsense we get going on in our country. And I thought about that when I was a deputy port controller. Because I know you can't do it with cars. And here it is 25 years later, we still got that going on. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. My producer for the night is the maestro, the great one himself, Mr. Kishno Jones. We shall move to our first break, and when we return, we're going to dig into this jet ski alert and how this teen get killed and why he shouldn't get killed and that type of thing. Thank you so much.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
We know what you want, and you know where to find it. Right here on Love 97 FM.
Hey, guess what today is? Well, you know today is Tuesday. Oi! And it's time for Captain Glenn. Are you ready on? So everyone, let's gather round. Cause Maritime Matters. He's a native of Andros. Say what? But he grew up in Nassau. sail around the Bahamas, all around with the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday, oh yeah, and it's time for Captain Glenn. Let's go, any boy. So everyone, let's gather around your radio, 'cause Maritime Matters. Hey, well you know today is Tuesday. Say what? And it's time for Captain Glenn. So everyone, let's gather, 'cause Maritime Matters.
Maritime Matters. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Glenn Bain, and you are tuned in to Love 97 FM and Maritime Matters. I am your host again, Captain Glenn Bain. We are talking maritime, people. At this point, we just want to do some housekeeping here. You know, you're listening. Maritime Matters is a show that comes on every single week, every Tuesday. Tuesday of every week at 17:05. That's 5 minutes past 5 or 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday, right here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and the international maritime feeds. The phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on this discussion during the show, is 322-5477 or 322-5683. I repeat, if you want to reach us during the discussion and you want to pan in on it, feel free to get us, 322-5477 or 322-5683. To hear a replay of the show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. We got our own YouTube page. Just like I love you, Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just go to YouTube on the electronic device and type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas. So let's talk maritime. Again, we take it all the way back. All the way back to the alert that was given out by Ambassador Mr. Herschel Walker pertaining to the jet ski operations around downtown Nassau. It's around the major hotels, it's Cable Beach, Paradise Island, around the cruise ship and right there in Prince George Wharf area, Long Wharf Beach, because they're all over the place, all right? Mr. Walker sent out a video over the weekend. Nicely done. And he's charging that it is very dangerous and high risk to rent or utilize jet skis while in the Bahamas, because the U.S. have report after report about incidents of American citizens being impacted negatively because they rented jet skis. And the first thing Ambassador Walker, well, not the first thing, one of the main things he's saying is, look, where I have control, it ain't happening. So he banned his staff. If you work for the U.S. Embassy, you are not allowed to rent a jet ski in the Bahamas. And if you do, you're basically violating the rules that are set by this embassy, by me, the ambassador. And so, no matter how they want to do it, once you work at that embassy, you better leave renting jet skis alone. Now, if you want to bring in your own jet ski, or if you have a friend who have a jet ski, and you're going out there and you're not in the areas where all this stuff going on, that's a different story, right? But You're not allowed to go and rent no jet ski, whether it's a holiday, whether it's a weekend, whether you're on, whether you're off. Not if you work under the U.S. Embassy umbrella. And he took it a step further and said, visitors, y'all listen to me. Now you got to remember, the vast majority of our tourists hail out of the U.S. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of tourists in the entire world hail out of the U.S. The U.S. have more visitors to countries than any other country. And why is that? you have to wonder why? Because they got more money than everybody else. So when they can afford to travel all over the place, who else can afford that? China now starting to catch up. Oh, Japanese like to travel too. So you see them all over the place, but not in big numbers like you see Americans, eh? So he's saying to those millions of Americans who come to visit our shores every year, and we keep breaking records, he said, don't fool with no jet ski. Because historically, we've been having some bad dreams and bad incidents with jet skis. We've had people lost their life. A lot of people raped. A lot of people injured. Severely injured. And the question we might want to ask ourselves is this true? And I dare say every single one of them is true. Every single claim here is documented over the years. And it went on even to say that so far they say 2 people don't get killed. Right? Which is really driving it to say something have to be done. And he goes on to say many watercraft. And he said watercraft, he talking about what they call them PFDs, personal flotation devices, right? Many of them are unsafe. And I don't think the craft itself is unsafe. We have a lot of people renting jet skis that never been on a motorbike. They never been on anything where they could go that fast and then control the throttle. On top of the water. Even in their car, they then close and they got 4 wheels. This thing like 2-wheel, this is like a motorbike, because this is get up out of the water and roll. And wherever you turn in that game. And if you're used to that kind of speed, you could do some damage, eh? And if you're not used to navigating, because you're not the only thing out there. You get water, what do we call it? Them said parasail boats doing parasail, banana boats doing banana ride. You got swimmers in the area. You got ferry boats crossing all the time, and cruise ships coming in and out. Well, the cruise ships ain't gonna hit nobody. But these jet skis is be right around the cruise ship sometime. As a pilot coming in on ships, you'll see in the pilot captain look at you. I'm pilot. What about these jet skis? You can't do nothing. What you gonna do with them? You can't hit them. That's like, sometimes you're driving, and when dog come in the road, and you swerve off because you're gonna hit the dog. And I see people do that. I say, what you swerving off for? Man, I hit that dog. I say, you can't hit that dog if you try. You try to hit that dog, he can run for you. I wouldn't dog, but cat. But, I just say that to say, you and these cruise ship, you can't hit no jet ski. You can't hit no boat because you so slow moving. But these jet skis could be a danger to the driver. Or we call it operator. All right? Because there ain't no car. They operate a jet ski. And a lot of the people that rent these jet skis, they know how to handle them. And they could do it with one hand and prance and come up on the sand. And the tourists see that. And they feel like, I want to get on one of them. I want to try that too. But they don't have the skill. That's like if you see a guy on the road popping his motorbike, and you go get a motorbike, say buy one pop like him, and the next thing you know, you're trying to pop your neck. Because some of these things call for skill and repetition. You learn by repetition until you hone your skill, and now you could just show off and do these things. And the guys doing that just to try and get a sale. They want the people to say, boy, that look like fun. Right? So they're doing these things. And sometimes they're doing these things around swimmers. And they're not supposed to be operating these jet skis within 200 feet of land. You're supposed to be operating no boat, no matter how slow it is, within 200 feet of the shoreline. That's law. We can talk about that in a little while, right? But these jet skis could be dangerous. These jet skis have proven to be dangerous. They had collisions with other boats. They had collisions with 2 jet skis, and people die. They hit people in the water, and people die. So it's really bad news. And whether they're insured or not, or whether they're licensed or not, that don't change anything. Yeah, we want them to be licensed. We want them to be monitored. We want them to be properly engaged in a proper system, a system that generates jet ski proper practices and that type of thing. And then I think it was also mentioned that in the Bahamas we have what they call a task force for water sport equipment, for vessels, for this, for that. And I think I could remember having representative of the task force on the show. I ain't gonna call no name. They know who they are, right? And my question to them was, what for? Why we need a task force? What could the task force do that is not already legislated for the New Providence Port Authority and the Port Department to be doing? And they couldn't even answer me. And you know why they couldn't answer me? Because they don't know what the boat registration or the water ski, not water ski, they made a legislation that the Jet Ski Act have in it as far as what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing. You could be a task force for a lot of things, but if you don't know, and it pours on to the Port Authority Board. Because the Port Authority Board is supposed to be doing or ensuring that some things are being done by the Port Department. And they'll tell us that they're doing these things. Bollocks, they say in the UK. Bollocks. We use a different term. But you gotta be careful what you say on these radio, they say. So I'll say bollocks. Means nonsense. Yes, they do have Port Department officials on those beaches. Yes, they do have the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Patrol Unit and the Royal Bahamas Police Force Patrol Unit checking those beaches every now and then. But you see, this thing have to go deeper than you collecting couple dollars and you giving your bike, and they call it bike. I've been on the beach plenty times around them. I used to enforce them too, right? You giving your bike to somebody who never been on a jet ski before. They can't operate a jet ski. And you tell them, this is throttle. Sit down, make sure you got it. Don't let this go. And this the pin now. When you fall off, the key come on the pin. You keep this thing around your arm. So if you fall off, you pull the key out so the jet ski don't double back and ride over you. They're good at that. Just make sure you get that chain, that wire thing around your wrists, a bungee cord thing, so that if you do fall off the jet ski, the key comes out with you, because your hand can pull the key out, and the jet ski gets stopped. And we see that happen all the time, right? So they get some safety mechanisms in place. But what is really needed is a system that is going to be enforced. And I can tell you about a system because when I served as Deputy Port Controller under Harvey Sweeting and eventually under Anthony Allens, I had the full reign to bring this jet ski operation under subdue. And we had to do it because, as said now, it was a total mess. And I'm going to tell you how we did it. We, as in the Port Authority Board, the Port Department, and the Defense Force Patrol Unit, which was kind of fresh in those days, right? Because while I was the Deputy Port Controller is when we got the very first 2 vessels for the patrol unit. As a matter of fact, the Port Department bought the first 2 vessels. Defense Force started to buy them afterwards. They didn't even have a Defense Force Patrol Unit when I was at the port as Deputy Port Controller until after a couple of years, right? But that's neither here nor there. So we had a very active Port Authority Board, led first of all by Mr. Robert Sweeting, MP for South Abaco. And he was such a smooth person. He just wanted things to be sorted out. And he gave me the leverage, Captain Bain. He didn't call me Captain, Mr. Bain. Mr. Bain, you know what to do. I want you to go ahead and try fix this problem. Right? And, of course, I can't do it by myself. Excuse me. So I got along with the hotels from which the jet skis are authorized to operate. And they had jet ski associations. I remember the one out Cable Beach. They used to call it the Gaza Strip back in those days. Oh, it was out of order, totally out of order. And Paradise Island was running much better. But they also had an association, right? And an association over Paradise Island. See, we had a member of the board. He was a deputy chairman. And I can call his name. Good guy. And that deputy chairman, he had jet skis over PI. He had a big company over PI. And he was engaged. So the fact that he was always there and he was a key player on the board lent well to us maintaining enforcement and good cooperation in that area. And we didn't have much problem with PI back then. And later on we did. But Cable Beach, man, look here, that had to be roped in. And so we started to have meetings. Well, first of all, I started to call them in and have meetings with the association in the Port Authority boardroom, downstairs on Prince George Wharf. This long before all the changes, right? I would have them come in afterwards, like around 7, 8 o'clock. And sometimes we leave till 10, 11 o'clock in the night. Rowing, carry on bad. They round me and I let them round me. And I round them back and the only thing I tell them, no profanity. But let's get over these problems. Right? And then you soon realize that there was a lot of undercutting, they call it. And they use these terms. He won't undercut. He know the price is $60. He won't go for $50. He won't go for $45 just to get the job. And we in rotation. He jump in rotation and undercutting and this. And they all these things coming out in these meetings. And then I told them, just give me the name. And then we started to go there because they also said that there were people coming out there with jet skis that were not in the rotation, that were not registered they were not currently registered. But they'll still come out there and solicit. So it was like a free-for-all, right? And what we started to do is, I got together with my boys, with Ian Ford and Cyril Morley and Bradley and those guys, and I would take a team of guys out there with me at least once a week, And we would carry, with Mr. Delvin Moss, we'll carry 1 or 2 points of a boat registration with all the list of jet skis that are registered for what area and all the rest of that. And we would go out there and we would pull the bikes that shouldn't be there. And we would keep them by the police marine place or take them all the way to Port of Ski and take them on the water until they get them sorted out. And we didn't have to do that too often, you know. Once we started to do that, we got the association to start to work with us on that. Because I want you to know, a lot of, I'm using too much time on jet skis, but a lot of these people operating on those beaches, a lot of them are real business people who wants to do things right. And then you get a handful of them, and we call them renegades. I know the talk, right? You get a handful of renegades who only want to make a couple dollars, and some of them coming out there waiting for somebody, so they got to give that somebody $200 a day. Just like how the taxi drivers do their thing, right? And the loudest one figure, he can intimidate everybody else, nobody could say nothing there, so he could get away with it, yada, yada, yada. So we started to spend more time with them, and we started to give power to the association. Realize that we ain't gonna be out there all day. The association members out there all day. And then we had players like, you know, my boy Renwood Roll. He had a lot of bikes. He was the biggest player out there. But I forget the name of his operation. Action, I think, or something like that, right? Renwood and Hope and the fellas who really meant business. They started to shape this thing, and we tied in with the hotel security. And then we started having meetings at the hotel with the hotel manager and director of security and all of that. And it got to the stage where the hotel gave us a room that we could come and relax and just watch the jet ski operation without them even knowing we in this room. Right? And because they wanted it to work. And then we arranged where the security of the hotel could write a report. We drafted forms. Write a report. All we need is the name of the person, the time, the date, what they did wrong. And nowadays you can take video and all, right? And when those reports came to me, because I told them I want the reports, I made arrangement. Me, Glenn Bain, personally, I made arrangement with the Attorney General Office. May his soul rest in peace. Sharon Rose, my good buddy. May his soul continue to rest in peace. To try and arrange for us to try these cases, because see, at the time they had no Jet Ski Act. Everything was Boat Registration Act. And the Boat Registration Act said once you bring a bike out here and it ain't registered, you're in violation of the law and you'll be fined so much. And it was only about $50, you know. But what that did was we used the penalties from the act every time somebody did something wrong out there. And we put them in court. And when we put them in court, it'll take a while, but they gave us like how they had the traffic court, we had a jet ski court. And they used to do other things to the court, but we were able to get some of those cases in there. And after the first 5 or 6 cases were tried, some of those guys came back to me and said, boy, Mr. Bain, you messed me up. I said, what you talking about? Boy, I had to go get a lawyer and go to court, and I get my bike by the car. I said, man, you do the foolishness. And when the rest of them realize that you could go to court, you gotta spend money for a lawyer, you gotta waste time, you gotta do this and you gotta do that, they started to realize we have some teeth. Mind you, the teeth wasn't that sharp, but we had some teeth. And guess what else we did? Once I got information from that court that somebody is found guilty, that jet ski could no longer be registered at the end of the year because the Port Authority Board blacklisted that jet ski. And some of the other jet skis that we had a lot of reports on that were operating and doing the undercutting and jumping the line and not cooperating with the association or with the officers when they come out there. What you think happened to them? Some of their license got suspended and it was not renewed. And that means they losing money, right? And when we suspend your license, we out there in the morning the next day to check to make sure you're out there talking about you in the rotation. We make sure everybody know. And so later on, like 2 or 3 short months, excuse me, Mr. Robert Sweeting was removed from the chairman of the board, and they brought in this fiery lady. Oh man, when she came and she took that thing and they thought I was hard, but Miss Daphne Duncombe Cooper, then she came in. She grabbed that whole system and she shook that. And she started to have meetings at the hotel and she started to cancel and man, those guys were so scared of her. Well, I mean, I was kind of scared of her too, right? But she took her job. She's a lawyer. So she read that and she realized where we could hold these fellas. And she realized the Port Authority Board was responsible by way of postponing, canceling, and issuing registration at the end of, because all registration expire on 31st of December every year. So these fellas realize now if you get 2 or 3 reports, you got to go in front of the board and explain why we should renew your this bike license. Because everybody got a number. And once we license you, we know your number because we start keeping a list of those who we registered to work and what area you could work in. So I don't know what happened from those days when we were able to bring semblance to the Gaza Strip to these days. Perhaps the authorities are not really realizing their responsibility. Because if we could devise a task force to deal with jet ski situations, but you have a Port Authority Board already, that their job is to make sure this thing working in order. You have a port department that have people at dormers every day. Why would you need a task force on top of that? To me, that don't make no kind of sense. But you have a task force. Ask them if they ever did anything pertaining to jet ski enforcement. Not one iota. And I can tell you that. Anyway, you look like y'all want to talk to me tonight. Like I said earlier, we got to talk about these things. The number to call, if you want to reach us, 322-5477, 322-5683. I am Captain Glenn Bain. You are listening to Maritime Matters. We are discussing the alert issued by the ambassador of the U.S. Embassy, Mr. Herschel Walker, pertaining to jet ski unsafe practices, pertaining to no American citizens, no U.S. citizens utilizing rental jet skis when they come to the Bahamas. Earlier we talked about the agreement made between the U.S. and Iran that ended the war in the Gulf. The bombing ceased. The Strait of Hormuz will open up on Friday morning, but it's open already. Ships are going through. They had a couple of ships already going through without no problem. Iran ain't bothering them right now, right? So the UNCLOS, United Nations Law of the Sea, that says once a ship is not stopping in your waters, they should be able to pass freely, is back in place basically for the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. naval fleet that was creating the blockade has dismantled blocking ships and they're now getting ready to head home. Oil prices probably can continue to soar for a bit, and then it'll take a nosedive, come back down. May not come all the way down to where it was, but it'll certainly come down significantly. And then we talk about the security alert by the U.S. Embassy. They banned all American embassy staff from renting jet skis. Visitors, they're advising to desist from renting jet skis. They're talking about injuries and fatalities and sexual assaults and all the rest of that good stuff that happened over the years to Americans. This is why they are putting out the alert, or they have put out the alert. They're saying that many of the jet skis are unsafe. They're unsecure, uninsured, unlicensed, all the rest of that stuff. And then they need law enforcement to strengthen the monitoring of them. And I just finished talking about the details of what really need to happen with these jet skis so we could rope them in line, eh? And then, of course, we want to talk about why you get a task force if they can't do nothing, or if they ain't prepared to do enough. They don't even understand what they're supposed to be doing to begin with, right? The Act is clear on the provisions to control this problem. We need the entities charged with enforcement of compliance to do their jobs. That's the New Providence Port Authority. That's the Port Department. And the Defense Force ain't part of that, but they did assist. The Police Force did assist because they have Marine divisions that are always on the water. Fast boats, they get there in no time. So you got backup. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we move to our second and final break for the night. And when we return, we want to dig into this teenager that got killed on this boat in Abaco and what we need to do to strengthen these type situations. You are listening to Maritime Matters. I am Captain Glenn Bain, producer for the night, Mr. Kishno Jones. Thank you so much.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
One people, one music, your station. Love 97.
Maritime Matters. We are back, my dear listener. We got about 10 minutes to wrap up. We may need more time, but we don't care. We can work with what we got. We talked earlier, again, about the agreement to bring to an end the war in the Gulf. We talked about the security alert issued by the American Embassy pertaining to the use of jet skis by American personnel. Now we're going to talk about the teenager that was killed in a boat driven by a 12-year-old in Abaco, somewhere there, what, Nanja Key, between there and Grain Turtle Key, and you know, it's a nice area to be moving around in boats, because you know, the Abaco Keys, I wouldn't say like none others, because boy, you got the Exoma Keys as well, and the Ragged Island chain, and And we got plenty keys and chains and things what really saying something in this country. The Bimini keys, Bimini chain. And all of them are beautiful. But unfortunately, we had a situation where a group of teenagers, based on what I read, a group of teenagers were on this vessel of some 4 or 5 persons, all young, ain't none over 20. I don't even think none was over 18, right? And somehow, the 12-year-old happened to be on the controls. And the 15-year-old, I think he took the boat hook and he stood up on the bow area. And something happened. They didn't give the details as to whether a wave came and tipped it over or what happened, right? Next thing you know, I think he fell overboard and the boat probably went over him, based on what I could gather from what was in the press. And they tried to revive him, but it didn't happen. And as a matter of fact, they went in and without him, and another boat or team had to go out and get him. And then they tried to revive him. It was negative, so he passed away. And the big question about this is there anything illegal about this, or is there anything that shouldn't have happened that happened? And the simple answer, without trying to implicate anybody or, because sometimes these things go into tailspins. And it ain't necessary really to implicate, because a lot of people don't even realize we got laws pertaining to these things. And if I didn't work at the Port Department, I wouldn't know either, eh? So me, being the person who's supposed to enforce these laws, had to learn what the laws say and had to advise people accordingly and all the rest of that good stuff. So the reality is the 12-year-old should not have been behind the control. And let's see if I can find an abstract of the law pertaining to this, so you wouldn't say, oh, that's what Glenn Bain say. No, let's see what the book say. And the Act of Parliament, the act that covers this, is really the Water Skiing and Motorboat Control Act. You see, we have 2 acts under the Port Department that covers registering vessels. And a lot of people don't know that we have 2 types of registration under the Port Department. They know that the BMA, or the Bahamas Maritime Authority, registers international ships, right? They know that. The Port Department registers local-owned ships. And we have 2 acts. We have the Boat Registration Act, which really deals with vessels that want to go out there and make money. In other words, you want to ply your vessel for hire. You want to carry people or carry freight or carry something with your vessel to make money. You want to charter that. You want to do this. You want to do that. Anything you do other than fishing, fishing don't come under plying for hire, because that's a job you're doing. You're doing your own fishing, right? But you making money off other people, you plying for hire. You need to register that under the boat, no matter what size. No matter what size. Once you have something bigger than a 15 horsepower engine, well, for commercial purposes, it don't even need no engine. It could be a sun sail. You need to register that if you could be renting that out. And then you have, for the private owners, if you buy your own sun sail and you want to register it, you ain't got to rent that out or nothing like that. There's a different kind of registration you got to do. If you buy your own yacht, you buy a 60-foot yacht because you hit the lotto and you got all kind of money. And you hire me because you ain't know how to navigate no yacht. I could navigate that for you. You hire me to take you out on island hopping to do, and I love it because I know you got plenty of money. We could drink beers, and I could tell you how to get in and out the harbor, and I could drive your boat, right? You go to register your boat All you need to do is show your ownership and show that that boat cleared customs to enter the country if you didn't buy it locally. And you get your registration. You don't need to prove that you have it insured. You don't need to prove that what other things it's asked for? It's asked for all kind of things for when you use your boat for hire. Right? You got to have a licensed captain. You got to get an inspection. You got to do all that if you want to go for hire. But if you only buy your boat to use for your private use, you ain't got to do none of that stuff. All you got to do is go and drive your boat when you want to. Or if you want your neighbor to drive it, let your neighbor drive it when you lend it to him. Once the person is more than 16 years old, they need to know nothing but the sea, nothing but boats, nothing but lights, nothing but nothing. And they could go there and drive their boat and be legal. So that's the Water, Ski, and Motorboat Control Act, right? And they have some prohibitions, right? Although you got your boat registered and someone who licensed for driving it, there's certain things they still can't do. And one of them I can read, because, time closing in on us. It says, no person shall water ski or drive any motorboat. This is section 3 of the Water, Ski, and Motorboat Control Act, right? No person shall, and you could just go online, Bahamas laws online, pull up Water, Ski, and Motorboat Control Act, and you could read the stuff yourself. No person should water ski or drive any motorboat, whether or not with a water skier in tow, within 200 feet of the shoreline in any area to which for the time being this section applies, except when motorboat or water ski is either A. So what they're saying is you can't come within 200 feet unless A, you're approaching or leaving a marina, dock, jetty, or other installation of permanent nature intended for the reception of boats. So if you come into within 200 miles, you only coming in there if you come into a dock or a marina or something. You coming into land because you're going to stop your boat, right? B, you're proceeding at a speed not exceeding 3 knots. You know what 3 knots is? 3 knots is like 5 miles per hour. Well, 4.5. Let's say 5 miles per hour. You can't, once you come within 200 feet, you can't be going more than 5 miles per hour. So them fellas who peeling off in them jet skis and them banana boat and them parachute, they should never be operating within 200 feet of land. Exceeding 3 knots and with due caution and circumspection in the most direct line consistent with safe navigation between open sea beyond the restricted zone and the shore. So in other words, once you hit 200, that 200 contour to come to land, they want you to do a straight line. They don't want you to do no big zigzagging. A straight line. Once you consistently keeping the boat from running aground, with consistent navigation, as straight as possible to get to shore. So they don't want you within that 200 feet riding along the shoreline or nothing like that, because they know people could be swimming and stuff. They don't want you in there with your boat. So whenever you see you on the beach and you see a boat and you know you ain't 200 feet out, because we don't go that far out, right? That boat is in contravention of law. And C says, towing a water skier in a lane clearly marked off with buoys. So if in those days when they used to do water, they don't do it no more, but they used to do water skiing, they had them buoyed out. And the swimmers couldn't go in those areas where they could be doing the water skiing. And that's what they're talking about there. And then they say if you're in distress or you need assistance, then of course you can come in within the 200 feet. So no boat should never be operating within 200 feet of land, according to the law. No matter whether you're a commercial boat or private boat, you should not be operating within 200 feet of land. And the second thing I want to read before we wrap up, because our time gone, is the age restriction. Because we're talking about the situation where this 12-year-old is driving a boat. And it reads, Section 7. Age restriction on driving motorboat. Subject to the provision of subsection 3, we ain't talking about all that, right? Of this section, it shall not be lawful for any person under the age of 16 years to drive any motorboat powered with an engine rated at more than 10 horsepower. Engine, I don't even think they get 10 horsepower on boats no more, right? All the boats they get they're now more than 10 horsepower. So, in other words, if you operating with a Seagull engine, excuse me, which can't do more than like 5 miles per hour anyhow, you have to be over 16. And number 2 says, any person who contravenes the provision of this section and any other person who knowingly permits a person under the age of 16 years to contravene such provision shall each be guilty of an offense and shall each be liable on summary conviction to fine not exceeding $1,000. So if you let somebody drive or handle your vessel who is less than 16 years old, you could be you and them supposed to be fined $1,000 each. Number 3 says this section shall not apply to any person under the age of 16 years who has satisfied an officer appointed for that purpose by the minister by practical examination that he has the knowledge, skill, and ability to navigate a motorboat powered with an engine rated at more than 10 horsepower without danger to himself or to the public, but the burden of proof that any such person has so satisfied such officer shall in any proceedings lie upon the person charged. So the minister could authorize somebody to say, well, this is a little special fella, man. He grew up around this marina, they own it. He drive the boats every now and then. He only 15, he only 12, he only 10. But we know he done proved that he is capable of handling these vessels. So we'll give him authorization to do it. But that have to be done by a person authorized by the minister. You can't just think that yourself, oh man, my child live here, you know how to do it. No. You ain't authorized by no minister to do that. And then number 4, I say, notwithstanding anything contained in subsection of this section, person between the ages of 14 and 16 may drive any motorboat to which that subsection applies while under the supervision of a person of or over the age of 16 years, and no person shall be guilty. So if you it's like when you get a permit to drive a car, except you don't need no permit. If you have somebody who over 16 in that boat, you can drive it once that person on board with you without any of you all being penalized. That's what the law say, and they don't say nothing else but the age thing, right? So we know that in this situation, unless some things happen that they're not telling us, there were some violations, right? And that kind of wraps us up, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we done gone way over the line, eh? So don't look like y'all wanted to talk to me again tonight, although many of you do hit me up, and when I see you, boy, I couldn't call because you was educating us and this and that, which is fine. That's what I want to do. I want to get the information out there. We want to do better. But I still like to get my calls. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, I want to say thank you to my sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy up there in Freeport. I want to say good night again to my good Auntie May and Lorraine and Margot and all the rest of the daughters. And I also want to say thank you to my producer, Mr. Kishno Jones, for keeping things alive and kicking. And especially you, my dear listener. I want to say thank you for continuing to listen to Maritime Matters on Tuesdays. With that, as always, we say Maritime Matters, tick, 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 tick. Out.
Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for. Look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Sitting here
music, your station. Love.